Thanks for joining us. My name is Chris Anderson. I am the Director of Undergraduate Recruitment for both the College of Arts and Sciences and the Maxwell School. For this presentation, I am very happy to be joined by my two colleagues, Rachel Skipper, our Associate Director, and then Ash Andrews, our Recruitment Specialist. They'll be introducing themselves in a little bit more detail in just a few minutes, but I'm going to go ahead and go right on to the next slide and get right into things. So this presentation is really meant for prospective students who are interested in the College of Arts and Sciences and the Maxwell School and learning more about the specific opportunities available to you through this particular academic unit at the university. So what this session will not be is an overall presentation on every single scholarship that's available at Syracuse University. We will talk about some of the general scholarships that are available, but we are more specifically going to be talking about applying to and possibly receiving a merit scholarship in the College of Arts and Sciences and the Maxwell School. So these are kind of the way we're framing the information tonight. Now, the first thing that we want to let everyone know, when you apply to Syracuse, you are automatically considered for every merit scholarship that we offer. Now, some of the scholarships will be eligible to any applicant, and then some of the scholarships will be based on the school or the college that you might be applying to. Now, there's no separate application. There's no special box you need to check in the application. All you need to do is submit the required materials, and we will automatically evaluate you for our scholarships. Now, there are some scholarships where there may be some additional materials that are needed. We will invite students who qualify for those opportunities to submit the materials. There is no way to request them or to just find them available on our website, available to everyone. So we want to make sure that, for the most part, there are not additional things, but for some, we'll let you know if we need anything else. Now, one really great resource available to most students who are interested in Syracuse are opportunities for outside scholarships. There are many organizations, many businesses, in some cases, even opportunities related to your school where you can have funding brought with you to the college that you choose to attend. We have some opportunities for you to learn about some of these resources through our financial aid office. We'll share some information about that later, but we just want to make sure in addition to what we offer, there are some other ways to supplement your scholarships. And then one question we get regularly, are international students eligible for merit-based scholarships? Yes, they are. Now, we have a wide range of different scholarships that we offer. And just like for our domestic students, we're going to take a look at everything that you submit in the application to consider you for our merit-based scholarships. Some special notes. Now, if you are interested in receiving need-based aid, that's going to be separate from merit-based aid. Students who are interested in pursuing need-based aid options, you'd need to submit the FAFSA and the CSS profile, but you do not need to submit the FAFSA to be eligible for merit-based scholarships. Now, here are the things that we want you to take into consideration when applying to Syracuse and to kind of gauge where you might fall in the competitive range for our merit-based scholarships. Now, this is not a secret, as it says on the slide. These are pretty straightforward things that we would expect you already anticipate, but we are looking for students who are performing well in a rigorous curriculum. So if your school offers the opportunity for AP courses, IB courses, college level courses offered in your high school, that certainly will look good when it comes to the admissions process, but also when it comes to whether or not you may be competitive for a merit-based scholarship. We want to see that you're genuinely interested in Syracuse. So being here tonight or today, depending upon where you're watching the session from, that certainly is something we will take note of. And there are lots of other ways where you can show your interest, such as perhaps doing an admissions interview, or if you're able to come and visit us on campus. We're of course going to look at your leadership skills and then what you're doing outside the classroom. That includes whether you're involved with athletics, performance, government, either whether it's student government or local government, and then community service as well. These are the key things that we're going to take a look at for both admission, but also scholarships. Now, one special opportunity that we'd like to introduce to everyone, if you haven't heard about it already, is the Coronat Scholarship. It is one of the most prestigious scholarships that we offer at Syracuse University. It offers a full tuition award for all 4 years, and it also will cover the cost of study abroad. It's a great program. It is also very, very selective. So last year, the College of Arts and Sciences and the Maxwell School received over 18,000 applications. My office, my colleagues and I, we took a look at all of the most competitive applicants to Arts and Sciences in Maxwell, and we invited 225 applicants to submit additional essays. From those essays, we selected 40 that we interviewed, and then we offered the scholarship to 30 students. So again, it's very selective, but it's pretty much the best scholarship offered at Syracuse University. And we're very proud of the fact that it's only offered to students who are interested in the College of Arts and Sciences and the Maxwell School. Now, as I was saying before, it covers full tuition for your entire time at Syracuse University, as long as you maintain good academic standing at Syracuse University. You also will have one study abroad trip covered for you, which really is a great opportunity and can be valued even almost as close as the cost of a semester. We also will to our Coronat scholars to do some sort of additional activity related to your academic endeavors. In some case, that might be a short trip to another city in the United States. Perhaps it might be doing some research. I've known some students who've actually had their housing paid for in a major city, New York City, and then various cities on the West Coast, and that was through the Coronat Scholarship. They also get a lot of great networking and mentoring for some prominent national scholarships. They're automatically invited to be a part of the honors program, and we do have some nice Syracuse swag that we give out to all sorts of different students, whether they visit or they've been admitted. And the Coronat scholars, they have some select apparel that we only offer to Coronat scholars. Now, when I meet with students, looking to see if they would have some of the common qualities of Coronat scholars. A lot of the things that I mentioned earlier, the leadership, the commitment, the strong academic performance. Many of our Coronat scholars, they're Eagle Scouts, or they've completed the Gold Award for Girl Scouts. Maybe they're class president, captain of a football team. But I met one student in New York City a number of years ago. His name is Noah, and I could just tell from having a conversation with him that he was more mature than many of his peers. He was definitely very bright, and he just had a sense of dedication to his community. So these are things that we're going to be looking for. And I had mentioned earlier an option for an admissions interview. That's where I got to meet Noah. And this could be an opportunity for you if you wanted to show your enthusiasm for Syracuse University to do an interview. They are evaluative. And if while we're doing any interviews, notice students who might be a good fit for the Coronat Scholarship, we'll make a note and take a look at that student when we get all their materials. So something to consider. And I still keep in contact with Noah today. He's graduated just about a year and a half ago. And so those great connections from before a student comes to Syracuse to post-graduation, that's another kind of side benefit of the Coronat Scholarship, to have that connection with people at the university. And I believe I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Rachel, who's going to be talking about our leadership scholarship.
Hello, everybody. Thank you again for being here today. My name is Rachel Skipper. I am our Associate Director of Undergraduate and Graduate Recruitment. And like Chris mentioned, I'd like to just mention a second scholarship that those of us in the College of Arts and Sciences in Maxwell do offer. Chris and I have a lot of fun every year looking at those Coronat applicants. And then next to the Coronat scholarship stands the Leadership Scholarship. So as you'll remember from the numbers, and maybe scary numbers on Chris's screen just a few minutes ago, we do see a lot of applicants to College of Arts and Sciences and Maxwell School. We offer only about 30 Coronat scholarships, but for leadership scholars, we're offering about 440 leadership scholarships per year. So this is a little bit less selective than the Coronat scholarship, but still a prestigious scholarship. We, like the Coronat scholarship, are not going to ask you to specifically apply for this. I did see some questions in the chat about that during Chris's talking points. For the Coronat or leadership, we're not asking you to apply. We are going to look at your common application and we'll make some decisions about whether we think you're eligible based on that. For Coronat, you would then go through with an additional application process. We'll let you know what that is. For leadership, you would just get offered the scholarship. So there's no extra essays, and this one is a little bit less competitive. I know many of you are probably wondering, what do I need to do to be one of those lucky students that gets one of these scholarships? And the answer to that is, for leadership scholars, specifically demonstrated leadership ability. We want to see in your extracurricular sheet, in your essays, etc., that you are really ready to be a leader in college. And we want to see you demonstrating that as a high school student. On the next slide, I have just some examples of what you would receive as a leadership scholar. And these are the reasons that we want you to show us that you're a leader already, right? You're going to get 50% tuition coverage. You're going to get a $2,500 stipend. We call it an academic stipend because that's something you could use toward a research project, traveling to present your research, purchasing equipment that you might need to complete a research project. You'll get linked up with the cohort of students that are all also demonstrated leaders in high school moving into the university. So you'll be with a group of students who share that kind of leadership mindset. You'll be invited to join the honors program. And of course, like Chris mentioned for Coronat, you'll get some cool apparel that kind of calls you out as one of the early leaders on our campus as you're joining us. Just a couple examples of the kinds of leadership that we're looking for. I want to share with you a couple of impressive examples of two students that received the leadership scholarship and then came to campus. One STEM example would be Erin McCarthy, who right during her freshman year started working in a physics lab on campus. And now she's using two different coding platforms, C++ and also Python, to determine how molecules might interact, right? Before we actually put those molecules together in a test tube and see what happens, right? Which could be good or bad. So we like to see cool examples of students like that coming to campus right away and starting research their freshman year. That's an example of a leadership scholar. Dara Drake, also during her freshman year, came onto campus and started working as a TA with a professor right away. And then she started learning how beneficial that relationship was. She actually already published a paper in a journal about the utility of TAs in college classrooms and published guidelines for our undergraduate students and students at other universities. What should you do to be competitive to be a TA? What should you expect to gain from that process? And what do universities have to gain from using undergraduate students as TAs? So these are two really great things. I see Trace in the chat, pretty impressive. Exactly, that's the message we want you to receive, right? These are students who have shown their leaders in high school. They come to college and they do really impressive things. And those are the two examples of students that we have on campus now who received this scholarship. So like Chris mentioned earlier, we want to make sure that you're very clear on one point, which is that those two scholarships, the Coronat Scholars and Leadership Scholars, are two programs that the College of Arts and Sciences and Maxwell School offers. They are not the only scholarships that the college or the university offers as a whole. Syracuse as a whole offers a whole long list of scholarship options. And I want to make sure that you have access to those scholarships. Scan the QR code on your screen now for that list, or visit the link in the chat that I just posted to find those options. So Chris and I would love that you're all competitive for these two scholarships we mentioned. We will be looking one by one at applications to find students for those scholarships. So that's a big part of what we are looking forward to this fall. But in case you're wondering about other scholarships the university offers, more than just two, there is a long list. That link is in the chat, or you can use the QR code on the screen. With that, I will pass the mic to my colleague Ash, who
Alrighty, hi everyone. So my name is Ash Andrews. I'm the recruitment specialist for both the College of Arts and Sciences and the Maxwell School of Citizenship and Public Affairs. First, I just want to say thank you to Chris and Rachel for kicking it off. And I'm going to talk a little bit about funding opportunities after you enroll. So, the opportunity to fund your education certainly does not end once you commit to a university. At Syracuse, there's also several opportunities to further fund your education while you're already a student. So the first couple I'm going to go over are scholarships awarded to returning students. So you may not have known this, but students coming into college from high school are not the only ones that can get scholarships. Our current students also have the opportunity to either be nominated for or to apply for various scholarships on campus. So one of the first ones I'll talk about just briefly is the Remembrance Scholarship. So there's, like I said, lots of different ones on campus, both academic and non-academic, and this is one of the largest. So adults, if you're in here, students maybe not, you may remember Pan Am Flight 103 that went down over Lockerbie, Scotland in 1988. 35 Syracuse University students unfortunately lost their lives that day, but we've taken that as an opportunity to look back, act forward, as we say, and 35 students are selected to honor the memory of the individuals lost in this tragedy. So students, if you're selected to be a Remembrance Scholar, you participate in a series of events to, again, remember these individuals, and you're also awarded a $5,000 scholarship while you're a current student. This is considered one of the highest honors at the university, and again, there's lots of other ones, but this is probably one of the most well-known on campus. In addition, there's also academic awards. So a lot of the different departments on campus have various scholarships, large and small, that you can get. Oftentimes you're nominated by a professor for these. A couple examples here, the chemistry department does one. There's one for humanities students. There's also ones that honor former professors. So again, the scholarship opportunities doesn't end just with the merit scholarships you're awarded from. So outside of scholarships, the other ways that you can earn, again, funding for your education are through various jobs and hands-on experiences on campus. One of them is internships. So students who seek an internship, whether it be just finding one on your own or going through our academic and career advising office, there's several different types you can get. Some of them are paid and you make an hourly wage, and other times they're unpaid. However, we recognize that if you're dedicating your time and your knowledge to a project, that oftentimes you should be compensated. So there's several ways to receive funding for unpaid internships as well. That can be an unpaid summer internship funding. You could also get funding for travel and living expenses, even if your internship is paid, but you're relocating to a new city to complete it. So there's a couple of different internships that our students have had in the past couple of years that are pretty interesting. So just to kind of throw out a few, some local ones right in the city of Syracuse and the surrounding areas. We've had students intern with Interfaith Works, which is a refugee resettlement agency here in Syracuse. Syracuse is a sanctuary city, so there's a lot of great groups that help out with refugee populations. Senator Schumer and Senator Gillibrand have offices in Syracuse, so students have also interned with them. On a more national level, if you want to explore a new city for the summer for an internship, we've had students intern with Regeneron Pharmaceuticals, several government agencies, including the U.S. Department of State, DOD, even the FBI. I can't think of a cooler internship than working for the FBI. And even international opportunities. We had a student who's currently in law school who did an internship with the Council of Europe while he was abroad in Strasbourg, France. And we also had a student spend a summer at the U.S. Embassy in Uzbekistan. So lots of different options, regardless of what your major is, kind of what your interest is, what your future career goals are. And Syracuse can help support you, even if it's not a paid opportunity. So another big part of campus is research. So for folks who may not have known, Syracuse University is an R1 rated research institute, D1 for sports, R1 for research. And that means that students have opportunities to start research pretty early on, and you can also get paid to do it. So paid undergraduate research opportunities give you not only funding for your academics and for your degree, but it gives you hands-on experience in your academic area, skills to add to your resume. Not a lot of students can come out of undergrad saying that they already have 3 years of experience in their field. That means that instead of applying for an entry-level job, you already have some good knowledge under your belt. A lot of students will attend research symposiums and make professional connections there. One of my good friends in undergrad, I'm an alum, spent 2 weeks in the West Coast, a week in California and a week in Seattle presenting her immunology research. So that's another opportunity, and also very common for students to end up with authorship in an academic journal for their research. So not only can you get paid for these, but you also get a lot of great academic and professional experience. So even in research opportunities that may not be hourly paid, there's the opportunity to receive grants. So we have a wonderful office on campus called The Source, Syracuse Office of Undergraduate Research and Creative Engagement, that can provide funding to students to fund their project and any materials they may need, as well as provide them compensation for the research they're doing. You can get up to $5,000 worth of funding for summer projects and up to $7,500 for annual projects. And then in addition to all of the skills I mentioned in the previous slide, this also gives you the opportunity to gain knowledge in academic grant writing and project planning, because you have to propose all of the budgets for the project you're going to be working on, the timeline for the project you're going to be working on. You have to provide an abstract. So again, another opportunity to not only receive funding, but gain some academic experience. And I always like to clarify that most people think of research and they think of cancer and bacteria and rats, but that's not always the case. Regardless of what your major is, there's a research opportunity for you. So if you are, kind of interested in, say, linguistics or how people work or a humanities topic, we have a student doing a study on how theater impacts language acquisition as well as self-expression. Through the Maxwell School, if you're a social science person, we have a Moynihan Institute of Global Affairs that look at global insecurity in different areas. We have students working on archaeological excavation in a local area called Skaneateles, New York. They're looking at the old septic systems located on various properties. Of course, we do have a lot of great scientific research going on as well. A couple of our students that work in our office during the semester do research. Our one student, Hannah, does research in our auditory electrophysiology lab. Say that 3 times fast. And she looks at essentially how individuals process sounds. We have a stuttering lab on campus that look at correlations between children's stutters and proficiency. I myself did research in undergrad. I did neurotoxicity research with Catherine Lewis, and I looked at microplastics and how they can cause epilepsy. So again, regardless of kind of what topic you're interested in, what your future career goals are, there's an opportunity to you to make money doing research, and also, again, gain all of those technical skills that really look great on a resume.
Now, as I mentioned earlier, at Syracuse University, we offer need-based financial aid as well as merit-based financial aid. So we find that a healthy percentage of our students, when they come to Syracuse, they receive some form of aid, whether it's just a merit-based scholarship or just need-based aid or a combination of both. Now, when you apply for financial aid at Syracuse University, we're not going to necessarily wait a long time to let you know what your financial aid package is going to be. We're going to try to get that quickly to you as quickly as we possibly can. But a lot of that is dependent upon when you get your financial aid materials in. So I would encourage you to make sure you visit the financial aid webpage to make sure you're familiar with all of the deadlines, but also learn how you can apply for financial aid through our office. It is a relatively lengthy process, so we don't want you to wait and do it too late in the game, because that's what we are able to offer to you. Now, my colleagues here, we do not work for the Office of Financial Aid. So if you have questions specifically about need aid, that really isn't our area of specialty. We can do the best we can as far as answering basic questions. But if you do have any questions specifically about need-based financial aid, the Office of Financial Aid is your best bet. Of course, I think the key thing that I think maybe my colleague Rachel wanted to make a point of, when you're filling out the FAFSA and the CCSS profile, it can take a while to complete everything on your end. It also can take a while for us to process everything on our end. So we just want to make sure you're not waiting too long. Prepare adequately to fill out those forms if you are interested in being considered for need-based aid. Again, for merit-based aid, you do not need to submit the FAFSA and CSS profile. We'll automatically consider applicants for our merit-based scholarships without these documents.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Chris and Ash, for your help with those talking points. I hope you've all been learning a lot from our team. And again, we are 3 people who will likely be reviewing your applications when you do submit them to the university and considering you for scholarships. So I'm leaving our contact information on the slide here. I hope we made it clear a couple of times throughout the session that these things should not be a mystery, and they are not secrets. We are here to help you as you prepare your applications, and we want you to be preparing your applications in ways that are going to make you successful, right? Because that makes us feel good. When we're seeing applications, we're seeing students that are doing the right things as they apply. That's our job, right? To make sure that you are feeling confident as you work through those applications. So we are going to respond throughout the next 30 minutes or so to your questions in the chat. If we don't get to your question, then please email us. If you're worried now that we're not going to get to your question, send us an email now, right? The three of us get emails from students or families every single day. So I'll leave our contact information here while I work through the chat. I'll pitch some of these questions to Chris and Ash too while we go through the session. And if you have a question for one of us specifically, don't hesitate to call us out in the chat by name so that we can respond to your question. Chris, I think two of the questions that came in at the beginning of the chat were during your slides. Those are, when is the FAFSA and CSS form due? And how do we know, or how do they know that I'm applying to Syracuse? So do I submit that application directly to them, or do I submit those two forms directly to Syracuse?
So use the QR codes on the last slide about financial aid. Rachel, if you wouldn't mind putting those QR codes back up, that would probably be useful. But my best recommendation is go right to the financial aid website. There will be a step-by-step process listed right there for you. So there are deadlines that are separate from application deadlines. And because our team only reviews applications and we don't review merit or need-based aid documents, I'm not really even familiar off the top of my head with the FAFSA and CSS profile deadline. So scan the QR codes. You can do it right now and take a look at our financial aid website. And that will give you all the deadlines that you need, all the links that you need to find out all the information that's relevant for the FAFSA and CSS profile at Syracuse University.
I will say that regardless of the deadline, we recommend that you submit these two forms at the time that you apply. Chris mentioned that once we admit you, we want to give you a financial aid package right away. We don't want to start reviewing your financial aid document then. So regardless of what that deadline is, we want you to be applying for that when you apply now. So I would say get started on it as soon as possible. Chris, a couple of other questions came in during your slide about interviews. Someone wanted to know, is it possible to still register for an interview? Hopefully we all in the chat know now. Yes, absolutely possible to do an interview. Another question was, can I do this before I apply? Of course, we encourage you to do this before you apply. Go ahead and start interviewing now. And once you do apply, those interview notes will be linked to your application. So they'll come together later once you submit the application. And then someone else sent me a private message, Chris, wanting to know what happens during an admissions interview. Who am I meeting? What kind of questions should I expect? I know you've done many interviews. So do you want to talk about what the general format is of these admissions interviews?
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier that the interviews are evaluative, so we will likely take notes and kind of take a general kind of a general overview of what we think you would, how you'd fit in at Syracuse University. But the interviews are typically somewhere around 30 minutes. When I do an interview, sometimes it'll be 8 questions or 10 questions. It really depends on how long the responses are and how detailed they are from the person I'm interviewing. I think the interviews generally I try not to stress out when I'm interviewing them. I hope that they don't come to the interview to try and stress me out or to grill me when I give them a chance to ask me. But I do think it's a great way to show Syracuse University with a member of our staff. And I think a lot of the who do an interview with us, the interview feeling more connected to the university and even learn more because of some of the questions they're asking, how you know, how knowledgeable our staff is and how comfortable they make them feel during the interview. So but in any event, if you'd like to register for an interview, I do remember last year at the end of December, every single interview slot was filled. So I would check out the admissions website where you can register for a personal interview. And I highly recommend it if you are interested in taking an extra step to show the admissions committee how much you like Syracuse.
Awesome, thank you. So we got two good questions from what feels like maybe parents in the audience who are wondering, does applying RD or ED hurt or help my chances of getting a scholarship? So if you're a student, you're already thinking ahead about that, props to you. These are good questions. If you're a parent, these are questions we get from parents a lot. So thank you for vocalizing that confusion. Applying RD versus RD does not hurt, help, or affect your chances of being accepted for or selected for merit-based scholarships. Early decision applicants do get a little bit of a boost, I would say, in the admissions decision process, because we do admit a higher percentage of early decision applicants compared to regular decision applicants. And also, if you think about that from our point of view, we want to admit more of these ED students because they're saying we definitely want to come to Syracuse. And like Chris mentioned earlier, genuine interest in the university is something that we are looking for in our applicant pool. But that being said, it does help your chances of admission to apply ED. It doesn't affect your chances of being awarded a merit-based scholarship. So we do encourage you to apply ED if you are really considering committing to the university, if you want to go to Syracuse as your #1 choice. Apply RD if you want to cast a wider net and really make more decisions about different schools that you might be admitted to one day. And don't let merit-based scholarships be part of that decision, because it really shouldn't affect merit-based scholarships. Another good question in the chat from the Thompsons was, are scholarships offered as incoming freshmen across all 4 years? And the answer is yes. These are renewable scholarships that renew for the 4 years that you are on campus with us. And then another question was, in terms of summer programs and courses, are they covered by scholarships mentioned? Chris, I'm not sure if you have more information on this than I do, but I don't believe that these summer courses would be covered. These cover 2 academic semesters per academic year, correct?
That is correct. Full-time students will attend in the fall and the spring. We do have some additional extra sessions, usually during the winter and the summer. So anything that you do during those extra periods would not fall into the traditional financial aid that we would award.
Okay, awesome. The next couple of questions are for Ash. And part of the reason that we wanted Ash to talk about scholarship opportunities for prospective students, for current Syracuse students, is that Ash was a current Syracuse student. Ash is an alumni of the university, and probably herself was considering a lot of these funding opportunities as a student in the not too distant past. So the first question directed to Ash was, for undergraduate research projects, do you work with a professor, or do you have to come up with your own research question/project?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's kind of 2 routes you can take. So there are some students who have a topic that they are really, really interested in, and you can submit a grant to the source to fund your independent research. However, more traditionally, students will work under a professor. So typically how it works is you'll find a professor who's working on a project that piques your interest. And then typically for the first maybe year or so, you spend that time gaining the skills you need to conduct research. And then after that is when it's now your turn to develop your own research question. So typically after spending some time learning about the lab, learning about the topic, learning about the project, that's when you say, what haven't we thought of? And so once you start thinking about that question, what haven't I thought of, is when you develop your own research question and you start having your own topic. So I know it can sound a little bit scary thinking, oh no, I have to come up with this, new topic that no one's ever heard of. But you kind of ease into it. And once you're very familiar with what's going on in the lab or in the project, it becomes pretty easy to start being a little inquisitive.
Awesome. We had that question quite a few times when Ash and I just took a trip to New York City, and everyone in the audience, I think, was a little scared with the complexity of the research projects we were talking about. So not to worry, like Ash mentioned, this is a partnership between our professors and our students. Another question that I don't know if was directed to Ash, but did come up during Ash's slides was, are work study opportunities in addition to research available? And what kinds of campus jobs are offered? How do I apply for a campus job? Ash, do you want to talk about work study and just working normal non-research jobs around campus?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, there is a ton of opportunities to have a part-time job on campus, ranging from working for catering to working in one of the fitness facilities. I personally worked in one of the cafes on campus, Life Science Cafe, really good smoothies. I also worked as a fish feeder for the biology department. So I would typically just do it, once or twice a week, depending on how many classes I had. But it's nice because if you're doing a job on campus, they recognize that your academics come first. And so it's very, very flexible and really easy to, again, just do something once or twice a week, more if you want. But yes, there's lots of opportunities in lots of different areas. You don't have to feed fish like I did. You could do something else. But yeah, plenty of opportunities for work study on campus, as well as just non-work study if you don't receive work study.
Awesome. As I'm going through the chat, I'm seeing a few more questions about need-based aid and basic merit scholarships. So quickly to answer those questions, Elise asks, what's the eligibility for need-based financial aid? That's not determined by our office. That's actually determined by the Office of Financial Aid. So you would fill out the FAFSA, fill out the CSS profile, and they make those decisions. There is no cutoff home income, for example, or something that you get it if you have this much money and coming into your home, or don't if you have that much. It's more of a well-rounded look at a family's assets, their incomes, number of children currently entered in college. There's a lot of different factors. If you have detailed questions about how the Office of Financial Aid makes those assessments, then I would encourage you to reach out to their office, but there will not be a simple, here's a cutoff type of answer. Also, we had someone ask, can a student get multiple merit-based scholarships? No, we do not offer multiple merit scholarships to one person. So a student might get the Coronat scholarship, for example, and not another scholarship, but if they were not eligible for Coronat, then maybe they would be offered a different scholarship. Leadership scholars would be a great example of that. It is true the student could get a combination of need-based financial aid and merit scholarships, though. So students often do get multiple lines of funding or different forms of funding. We just wouldn't be seeing multiple admissions merit-based scholarships awarded to one student. But there are ways that you can kind of stack up different forms of aid to cut down on the cost of tuition at Syracuse. I see a good question in the chat. Is there a specific person between the three of you that I should contact for a question about this, that, or the other thing? The answer is no. We are all three equally able to answer your questions. Whoever you felt was most engaging during this presentation, reach out to them. That's completely fine. You can just kind of contact any of us and we'll make sure we get you to where you need to be. Okay, Chris, another couple of questions that you might want to take. Does financial aid carry over to the cost of studying abroad?
Typically, a financial aid award will not cover the cost of study abroad unless a student is a Coronat scholar, and then that will be built right into the student's financial aid package. Now, if a student wants to study abroad and they want to receive some scholarship dollars for their study abroad experience, there are scholarships and grants that you can apply for through the office of the SU Abroad office. So that is the office that runs study abroad at Syracuse. They have opportunities to be funded for part of the experience, or in some cases the entire experience, but that would be separate from your standard financial aid package. That would be something where you come to Syracuse University first, you figure out with the SU Abroad office where you want to go, and then you would apply to any of those awards if you qualify for any of them initially. So that would not be in part of the normal financial aid package, but there are other options to cover those costs.
All right, and another question in the chat was about ROTC scholarships. What should I know about ROTC scholarships? I'm actually not extremely knowledgeable about them. I know great people who can help you who work with ROTC students, both Air Force and Army. So I know who I can put you in contact with. Chris, do you have anything that you want to chime in on about ROTC scholarships?
The main thing I was going to say, you've already mentioned that we at Syracuse, we have Air Force, ROTC, and Army. We do not have Navy, and those are the only two we have. But I know that there have been students in the past who have been ROTC scholars, and a very, very large portion of their entire total cost of attendance was taken care of. So I would definitely reach out to our ROTC recruiters if you're interested in the funding that they offer, but that would be separate from.
I see a question from Linda. For students that receive need-based and merit aid, are they able to use leftover money, if any, towards summer research opportunities? The answer is kind of no, just because there won't be leftover money. We don't award scholarships that exceed the amount of tuition at Syracuse unless it's something like the Coronat scholarship where it's already allocated to study abroad, research, etc. So you're not going to get more scholarship money than you need to pay for college. And if you do, it's because it's already kind of earmarked for a specific activity like research or study abroad. So you won't be making decisions about how additional scholarship funds are spent. I hope that answers your question. I see a question from Sophia about SAT. Can those scores be sent after the early decision deadline? The answer is yes, but the answer is also not required. So if you're worried about your scores coming in on time, I would say don't be. If you do receive an impressive score and want it to be considered as part of your application, send it along. If you're worried that you're well after your application getting those scores and that maybe we already reviewed your application and won't see those new scores, then email us to let us know and we'll be sure that your application is reviewed alongside those scores. Kevin, I see you have your hand up a couple of times throughout the presentation. If you have a question for us, feel free to either unmute now or leave your question in the chat.
Hello. My question is, you say that the international students should file the CSS profile and submit it prior to the deadline now. I have been working on the CSS profile, and the problem is there's some fee that is required in order for me to submit the CSS profile. So my question is there a waiver from Syracuse University that I can use to waive those fee in order for me to submit the CSS profile?
So Kevin, I think an important part of your question was one of the initial things that you mentioned as an international student. International students are not eligible for need-based aid. So you do not need to submit the FAFSA or the CSS profile to Syracuse to be considered for need-based aid because we do not offer it to international students. However, international students are eligible for all of our merit-based scholarships, which do not require the FAFSA or CSS profile. I know on the financial aid website, they do have a dedicated area for international students. So if you'd like to visit the financial aid webpage and you are an international student, I would take a look at that information.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. I'm looking through the chat at a few more questions. I see a couple of more questions about financial aid. One of them is, are there other steps besides the FAFSA and CSS profile? This again is a question for our Office of Financial Aid. So you should direct your questions to them, follow the links in the chat or these QR codes. The easy answer is no. At the beginning, there's not more you need to do. Submit the 2 forms. But the more complicated version of this is there may be more things that unfold as they begin to look at your documents that they may need from you. And those are questions for their office, and their staff will be helping you through that process. Catherine, we do not have a SAT cutoff for the Coronat scholarship because SAT is optional. This is a good question from Jamie. Chris, do you want to speak on this? Will most students who apply to Syracuse receive some form of merit aid, merit scholarship?
I think the official answer is no. Most students will not receive merit money, but most students will receive some form of aid. As I think I mentioned, maybe I didn't mention a percentage, but I believe it's right around 87% of our students receive some form of aid. But merit scholarships are competitive merit scholarships. So the most competitive applicants will receive merit money, but I would not say that most students who apply to Syracuse will receive merit money. We are very fortunate to be popular and a lot of talented. So we are in a position where we can offer merit money to the very most competitive applicants and make sure that we are enrolling the correct number of students each fall. So hope that helps and is straightforward enough.
So Chris, I think you really sparked some interest in interviews. I'm seeing a lot of questions about interviews. So I will jump on a couple of these additional questions. One is, what if I interview after I apply? We already said it's okay to interview before. Is it okay to interview after? Absolutely. Just submit that. And like I said, we have kind of a process that is streamlined and connects your interview with your application after you apply. There's nothing additional you need to do. We will link those up. Where can I sign up for an interview? Scroll up in the chat. You can find a link to register for an interview. Maybe Ash or Chris could put that chat or put that link again for me in the chat now, so it's available at the bottom. There's just a single link you can go, or you can go search for it on the admissions website where you can just sign up for an interview at a time that works for you. What should we expect from an admissions interview? What kind of questions do you ask? How formal are those interviews? Are all questions that came up after Chris kind of talked about these interviews. So I'll jump in here. When I interview students, and I think this is true for most of our admissions committee, it is a somewhat formal interview. We'll be about as formal as we are right now in conversation with you, right? So we're just people. We just want to hear about your experiences. We want to know basically from an interview, what can we add about you to your application that would be of interest to our admissions committee? Usually positive things. So questions will be, what do we need to say to get you to tell us those things, right? What have you been most interested in as a high school student is something I ask. Why are you interested in attending Syracuse? What do you hope to do as a Syracuse student? Is there something about the university that's really interesting to you? What do you think your best qualities are? So those are kind of standard questions we might ask. As long as you come prepared to tell us why you think you'd be a good candidate for Syracuse, you're going to nail the interview. It's really not a formal process. We are not grilling you. There are no tricks up our sleeves. We just want to get to know you and find out things that we can add to your application in the form of notes from our interview. So I would say dress semi-professionally. You don't need to show up in a suit. You don't need to show up, dressed to the nines. We understand you're a high school student, and many of students are coming to these interviews between soccer game and the last class they had at the day of school, right? So we understand that, this is not a job interview, but just come prepared to talk yourself up. Come prepared to brag about yourself. That's kind of what an interview is about. So if you have any other questions for that, just email Chris or me or Ash. One of us may actually be the person who interviews you, right? So we don't want this to be a scary process. I got another question about are all scholarships renewable? Yes, all merit-based scholarships that you receive at the time of admission are renewable. Now, some of the other types of grants that Ash mentioned, for example, may not be. So if you are coming to Syracuse and once you're on campus, you're looking for other forms of funding, those may be one-time dollar amounts, those may be hourly dollar amounts. But the admissions-based scholarships that we've talked about today and the others offered by the university are renewable for 4 years. I see another question. Chris, do you want to take this one? Does the financial aid package based on tuition? I think what they're asking is, does financial aid cover cost of room and board, or only tuition, or both?
Yeah, that's a great question. Any financial aid you will receive will primarily cover tuition. And in most cases, it will only cover tuition. There are some rare instances where a student will receive a merit-based scholarship and they'll receive enough need-based aid where you may get a credit towards housing or your man, but that's really for families who have a really large amount of financial need. That is not necessarily common. So in most cases, room and board will not be covered. Now, we do have a great opportunity for our students to serve as resident advisors and work as an RA and then have your room and board covered. So there are some students who have great scholarships, they have need-based financial aid, and because they serve as an RA, they do not have to pay for room and board. So pretty good all-around deal.
All right, I saw another question about if you don't get a financial aid package or you don't get a merit-based scholarship, could Syracuse be, quote, unbelievably expensive? And I think that depends on what your definition of unbelievably expensive is. My definition as a high school student going into college would be, yes, it can be unbelievably expensive and would have been for me and my family at the time that I applied for college. That being said, that differs based on each family. I did post a link to our cost of attendance, so you can see kind of a breakdown of what our tuition is, what we expect you'll pay in room and board, what other fees may come your way as a student at Syracuse. So you and your family should decide, is that a reasonable amount or not? But know that 75% of our students are not paying that sticker price. They are receiving need-based aid, merit-based aid, or some combination of those two forms of aid. So 25% of people are paying that kind of estimated cost of attendance, 75% of people are not. Is there a priority deadline for scholarship consideration? No, apply on time. Applying on time is the priority deadline. Often students will apply late and then, we will already have handed out a lot of these scholarship packages. And even though they are exceptional students, we've already allocated scholarship funds to everyone else who applied on time. So the application deadline is the scholarship deadline. And we would just like to see your applications in by then. Okay, I see kind of a logistical question of what if I switch my major within Syracuse? It is certainly possible to switch your major within Syracuse. It is possible to switch your major between different schools and colleges. I will only comment on the 2 scholarships we talked about today. For the Coronat scholarship, if you switch to another school or college at the university, you would no longer be eligible for the Coronat scholarship. That is a College of Arts and Sciences or Maxwell School scholarship. It is funding from our college. And if you switch to a different college, then they don't offer a Coronat scholarship. So you would no longer be eligible for that scholarship. The leadership scholarship does follow you to a different school or college around campus because other schools and colleges also offer the leadership scholarship. So you would switch from an Arts and Sciences leadership scholar, for example, to a Whitman leadership scholar. So the money does follow you. I would recommend that you reach out to the Central Office of Admissions to ask about any other scholarship that they may offer and what the stipulations are about moving in between colleges. In most cases, it is okay, but as someone who does not review for those scholarships, I don't want to say for 100% certainty that the scholarship would follow you should you change majors or switch schools. I see kind of an interesting question about double dipping in scholarships. If I'm a dual Newhouse and Maxwell student, can I get scholarships for both schools or only one? No double scholarships. Like I said earlier, students don't receive more than 1 merit-based scholarships at the time of the admission. That can change once you're a student. You can absolutely apply for grants, funding, scholarships, etc. from multiple different schools and double up on those scholarships as a Syracuse student. But in terms of scholarships awarded at the time of admission, we would not see a student getting more than 1 scholarship. Another question about ED2 and RD. Yes, the ED2 and RD deadline are on the same day, but yes, you will still get that advantage of applying early decision, even if you use the ED2 deadline. So a higher percentage of those ED2 students will be selected compared to RD students, even though they're submitting their applications at the same time. Chris, do you want to talk about the timeline? I see a question. When do you start reviewing RD? I suppose people may wonder this about ED2, and then handing out scholarships. And I'm picturing us handing out like golden envelopes of scholarships, and I wish that's how it actually worked.
Well, the timeline for reviewing is much longer than the timeline for handing out scholarships. We pretty much do it in a short period of time, along with the notification of whether or not a student is admitted. So I'll start at the end of the process. We will hand out scholarships when we notify students if they're admitted to Syracuse. So in your letter, if you are admitted, it'll let you know you've been admitted to whichever program you applied to, hopefully Arts and Sciences or Maxwell, and then it will let you know if you have been awarded a scholarship. Now, taking a step back, we will start reviewing applications for RD in mid-December. And our office, actually, we're heavily involved with the selection process for some other programs that have earlier deadlines. So we'll start reviewing those applications a little earlier, but full application review for all RD applicants will start sometime in mid to late December. Most of our review will happen in the new year, so January, February, and then we will typically notify students in March. Last year, we had over 41,000 applications, so it did take us from December through the end of February, early part of March to get through all of those decisions. So if you're thinking, oh, that takes a while, we want to make sure we read every single detail we can in each application and give everyone a full review, so our process is fair and taking every step necessary. So I hope that helps as far as the timeline and when you might hear if you're awarded a scholarship.
Awesome. In trying to wrap up the last couple questions, I just did post a link to the second to last question we're going to answer today was, what kind of person would be successful in the Maxwell School, I would encourage you to check out the What We Look For page, which is, again, a transparent look at the kinds of qualities we as a university are looking for. And I really don't think that differs between different schools and colleges at the university. We're really using many of the same criteria qualitatively when we are looking for students. And I will give the last question that we're going to answer today to Ash, because Ash is also someone else who has done many admissions interviews. Is there a difference between regional interviews and a general admissions interview in the application process?
So yes, but no. So essentially we have regional staff that are in various cities throughout the country, including Los Angeles, Boston, New York City, etc. And so since these are very populated areas and these are the individuals that visit the schools out there, this may be a person that you would have previously connected with. And so they just kind of cover those areas. However, if you are, say, from the Los Angeles area, you do not have to do an interview with the regional staff member from Los Angeles. You can do a general run. So there's not a difference in terms of the outcome, the style, the questions asked, anything like that. It's just staff members that are located in those areas that, you know, tend to have more time and interview students from their geographic area. So that's really the only difference. So again, if you're from New York City, you don't have to interview with the New York City staff. You can do it in general as well. It's up to you.
And we hope that you end up in one of our interview slots, as the three of us will have interview slots open on our website coming very soon. So with that, I'm going to close our session. We are just a couple of minutes from our scheduled ending time. Thank you all so much for being so engaged today and asking so many questions. That makes our job easy. That makes these sessions kind of fun, and they do fly by. I hope you all feel the same way after so much information heavy content today. We appreciate you being here. We know there are many other things you'd rather be doing this evening than who's stressing out about scholarships. We appreciate you spending some time learning about it. We enjoyed chatting with you today. And like I said in the chat, use our email addresses. We are here to talk to you. We anticipate that we will hear from you. I'm sure Chris, Ash, and I all know that tomorrow morning is going to be spent responding to emails from this session. We look forward to hearing from you. When that's the case, we'll talk to you then, and go Orange. Thanks again for coming today.